Okay, so let's look at this warm up real fast. All right, so on the first part, everybody put 4 out of 5. On the next one, did everybody put 1 out of 3? So basically what we're doing is, if you thought of this as a fraction, the top is what's shaded, the bottom is total. So on the first one, you would have had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them total. 4 of them are shaded, so you put 4 over 5. On the second one, you got 1 shaded out of 3. Now on the next one, we've got 2 shaded out of 6. So you could have wrote down 2 out of 6, but you need to change that into 1 out of 3, right? On the next one, you got 5 out of 6. And then on the last one, you got 4 out of 6, which reduces to 2/3. Okay, everybody good on those? It's a simple way of writing a fraction. So obviously today we're going to be working with ratios. So when you solve a proportion, you put the word multiply in there. Okay, now first, this is not on there directly like this, so I'm going to write down a couple things. So if I write down x over 4, okay, you could call that a fraction, but that's also called a ratio. So really, ratio and fraction go together. Okay. Now the next word they have on there is called proportion. All that means is you've taken two ratios that are equal to each other to basically make an equation. All right. So when we wrote down to solve a proportion, you're going to cross multiply. What that meant was, so if I have this fraction and this one, you're always going to do the top multiplied by the bottom on one side. So in this case, I'm going to do x times 3. And then I'm going to do the same thing with the other two numbers. I'm going to multiply the top times the bottom one, like that. So that's the cross multiply part. And at some point in your life, you may have heard cross multiply and divide. Where that comes from is, this was the cross multiply part, obviously, right? The next part was I divide because I'm trying to solve for x. And now I would have solved for x. Okay, so 3 is times x, so I'd have to divide by 3, right, on both sides. So I get x equals 8 over 3. I'm just going to leave it like that for right now. Anybody got a question? So what's another word for ratio? Just a what? Fraction. If it's a proportion, that means you have what? Two ratios that you can put equal to each other. And now we can solve for a missing part. All right, so the one that they had down for us to work out, it said solve x over 3, x over 5, sorry, equals 12 over x. You guys try to solve that right now. So x over 5 equals 12 over 7. So do you cross multiply first? Then whatever's multiplied by the x, that's what you would divide by. So does everybody get 60 divided by 7? Now, depending on how they want the answer, you could leave it like that. There's a mixed number, a decimal. Okay, so it just depends on what you're doing. But we can leave it like that because that doesn't reduce. You can't divide anything by both, so you could leave it like that. Okay, now let's look at the next one they got, number 3. Now that one says y plus 3 over 8 equals y over 4. Now that one looks a lot different, but you're still doing the same thing. One thing that you have to remember is when you have a fraction, okay, do you guys agree that this entire thing is being divided by 8, right? So basically that has to go together. So when I do my cross multiply, this 4 has to be times that. So I would have 4 times the whole thing, y plus 3. And I would put it equal to 8 times y. That'd be your first step. So before you can solve this one, now this one's not quite as easy. You can't just cross multiply and divide because we got 2 y's and you got this 4 out front. So now you're just solving this like it's an equation. I'd have to distribute the 4. So I'd have that first. And I want to get my y's together. Now, since there's no other numbers over here, it would make much more sense to subtract 4y to get it together. So I get to that point. And now if I want the y is times 4. So I would divide by 4. And I would have figured out what the y should equal. Okay, so what we're going to use this for, if you look down now at number, that's a scale drawing, it has the word scale measurement. And then over in the bottom, it has actual measurement. So what we're basically going to do is we're going to use scales to find out a missing part. So when you're trying to do this, the scale goes on top, the actual goes on bottom. So on number 4, it says the height of the symbol in the accompanying drawing is 1.5 inches. The actual symbol would be 12 inches tall in real life. So if I wanted to write down the scale, do you guys agree the 1.5 is the scale measurement? The 12 is the actual measurement. So I would write 1.5 on top over 12. Everybody good on that so far? Now, if you wanted to help you remember what's what, that's my scale part, right? That's from the scale. This is what it actually is. So when I set up this proportion for that next part and I look at it, it says if the width of the symbol is 1 inch, how wide will the actual symbol be? So it's saying the 1 inch is on the scale, right? So that would go on top. The X would go on bottom because we're trying to figure out the actual dimension of that shape. Okay, so let's pause. Everybody good on that, where I got that from? So both of these things on top have to come from the same place. The bottom have to be the same thing. So now I can cross multiply. So I'm still going to cross multiply 1.5 times x. I'm still going to do 12 times 1. And since this one ends up being 1.5x equals 12, you just have to divide by 1.5. So now my x would equal 12 divided by 1.5, which is 8, isn't it? Is that right? Okay, so on look at number 5. What's our scale we're going to use to figure out 5a and b? Look over there at your picture. What's it tell you? You guys see the scale underneath the map of Connecticut? It says 1 inch equals what? 53 miles. So your scale so inches is the scale, right? Miles is the actual. Does that make sense, everybody? So that's the scale we're going to use for each one of these problems. So if you measured on that scale and it said Norwich to Danbury is 1 1/4 inches, I'd first put down the scale that they gave me, the 1 over 53. So 1 is the scale, 53 is the actual. Then I would put the inches up here. X is going to be in miles. Does that make sense, everybody? So now I could still cross multiply. I could do X times 1. I'll do 53 times 1 1/4. What's it end up being? 56 1/4. 66, thank you. So it would be 66 1/4 miles, actually. Anybody think of a question so far? Okay, if that made sense, you guys try B real fast. Everybody set up 1 over 53 equals 5/8 over X. So we're doing 1 times X. 53 times 5/8. What's 53 times 5/8 give us? 33 1/8. So 33 1/8 miles would be our answer. Okay, let's do one more together. Okay, if we look at number 6, the smallest mammal, the kitty hognose bat, has a head to body length of 1 7/50 inches and a wingspan of 5 1/10. I'm going to write this here. Do you guys agree that both of those are actual measurements? You guys with me on that? This right here is head to body. This is wingspan. So it says a scale drawing of this bat has made showing it in full flight. The wingspan on the drawing is 15 inches. Would it make sense why I would put that there? Because that would be the scale. You guys with me on that? And we're trying to find the scale on the thing that would go there. So when I set this up, I'm going to put X over 1 7/10, okay? And I'm going to put it equal to 15 over 5 1/10. So here's what I did when I was setting that up. Now, if somebody says, is there different ways you can do this? Their answer would be yes, but a certain pattern has to follow. What'd I do? Right here? Oh, thank you. Okay. Okay, so let me show you how we laid this out. So on top, do you guys agree that these are both scale? Like on this drawing, the 15 is going to be the wingspan. We don't know what the head to toe body is, right? Both of these are actual. Now, the other thing that's important is both of these are head to body, aren't they? You with me? They have to go together. Both of these are the wingspan. So now you've set up a proportion that you can work out. You would do 5 1/10 times X. And I would put it equal to 1 7/50 times 15. Okay, so can somebody punch in 1 7/50 times 15 and tell me what you get? What was that again, hon? 17 1/10. Everybody get 17 1/10? So those multiplied together, give me that, right? So what am I going to divide by? 5 1/10, right? So it'd be 17 1/10 divided by 5 1/10, which would give us 3 6/17. So that would be what the drawing head to body would be. All right, so real quick, when we set up the ratio, or I'm sorry, I should say proportion, let me point this out one more time, because this is where people get confused. On top, both of these were actual, both of these were from the scale, right? Does that make sense? Both of these were from the actual thing. And then the other has another label, head to body, wingspan, right? Make sure you put them together. All right, you guys turn the page and try to do 7 and 8.